Love smarter, not harder. Today's question. I'm turning 40 and feeling awful. Like all of my dreams that haven't come true expire on that line of demarcation. Please advise. Thanks so much. Well, I have been there, felt that. In fact, the first version of my book I published it at 40. I was single, not a man in sight. Like many of us, I always envisioned having a husband and a family. And part of the process of writing that book was my own experience of trying to grapple with this, these deep desires that were not happening in my life. And I needed to figure out how to remain happy, hopeful, and positive in the midst of an enormous amount of pain and frustration that the things that I wanted so deeply weren't happening. And so I get where you are. And I would first and foremost recommend my book. As I said, it came from a place that's very similar to where you are right now. And also my podcast, I cover this kind of stuff all the time. In fact, most recently in the latest episode 103, in which I answer 2 listeners' questions. And one is, can I find love after 40? So there are many of us that are out there trying to figure out how do we manage a life that doesn't look like the life that we planned? And can we still be happy and thrive in life even when these things we want we haven't gotten them? So I talk about that. Also in episode 100, I talk about taking charge of your thoughts, taking charge of your life, and I explain a cognitive behavioral therapeutic approach that helped me as I was dealing with the emotions, the sadness, the frustration, the grief of what wasn't happening in my life, and then unpacked that and the thoughts that are beneath the emotions that we experience, and then the beliefs that we hold. And I encourage you to listen to that episode because we look for what we call psychological flexibility, and we can be flexible in our beliefs. What does it mean? The belief is, you've said it here, that after 40, these hopes and dreams will have expired. And then what does it mean that they've expired? You're using that terminology, you're choosing that terminology, and really you're choosing that belief. Because first of all, I can assure you that many people find the love of their life after 40, as I did. I met my husband when I was 40 and a half and got married at 42. And I know people in my space. There's one that comes to mind is Treva Brandon Scharf, who's the late blooming bride. She didn't get married until 50. So there are many people that are able to have those hopes and dreams materialize later than they'd hoped, but it's their path and they've made peace with it and they're really happy, because the flip side of waiting for some of this stuff is that we gain so much independence and strength, and there are so many perks to the single life. So if we look at the belief that you're holding on to, if we look at ways that we can be more flexible with your belief, the meaning that you ascribe to your situation, your circumstances, that will influence your thoughts, and your thoughts influence your emotions, and you will be happier, I can assure you. So take a listen to that episode. Also, episode 99, I talk with Melanie Notkin, the author of Otherhood. Melanie's in her early 50s now, and she deeply wanted a husband and children, and she is still single, and she thrives. She loves her life. She's not unhappy, and she still has hopes and dreams, but the fact that these desires haven't materialized yet hasn't taken her down and made her miserable. So check out that episode. In episode 90, I talk a little bit about my book, Single is the New Black. In episode 83, I speak with Leslie Kaz, the author of Single Girl Bliss. That's a great resource. In episode 71, I speak with Laura Banky, who has the brand of Life Actually, and she talks about owning your timeline, and that we all have a unique timeline and journey, and all of our paths are valid, and we can thrive therein. Also in episode 65, I talk about liberating your mind from depression and anxiety, and I speak to the psychological flexibility with the creator of that term, who's a psychologist named Dr. Stephen C. Hayes. He's the creator of ACT, which is where that term comes from, so I encourage you to listen to that. Also in episode 52, I speak about neuroplasticity, which again, taking charge of our thoughts, absolutely rewires our brains and helps us to have a default mode of happiness and peace, even in the midst of a life that isn't currently playing out as planned. So I hope all of that will be helpful for you.